What does it take for you to be more productive in life? Is there a secret to self-improvement? Jesus says that we can actually try too hard, and instead, we should be like fruit.
Good morning, Cross Life. Good morning, Facebook Live viewers and YouTube channel watchers. Good morning, everyone tuning in to the Tell podcast around the world. I read a powerful blog this past week, and it just stayed with me and revealed to me a strong connection with the message for today from our I Am series. And the blog was about the powerful way that a smartphone, can connect us in uncharted and unhealthy ways to others and to ourselves. So I want to read part of it and summarize part of it. It's based on a story, and I really think this draws a powerful conclusion. It says this: let's imagine a 7th grader. He's a quiet kid, polite, with a few friends. We'll call him Brian. He's starting to wonder where he falls in the social hierarchy at school. He's thinking about his clothes a little bit, his shoes too. He's conscious of how others perceive him. He goes home each day, and from the hours of 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., he has a break from the social pressures of middle school. Most evenings, he doesn't have a care in the world. The year is 2008, 10, 11 years ago. Brian has a cell phone, but it's off most of the time. After all, it doesn't do much. If friends want to get in touch with him, they call the house. Now, the blog goes on to imagine Brian on a typical weekday. So he gets up in the morning, he has breakfast with his family, his sisters are there, his dad is there, his mom's already at work, he goes off to school, he goes to homeroom, he goes to everything's fine in the morning, he goes to lunch, he eats the sandwich that he likes, but he's got this bowl of tomato soup that he doesn't like. He's taking that back to put on the stack of dishes, and he hits a slick place of water on the floor, and he falls. On his backside, the tomato soup flies all over him. There's some 8th graders at another table. They see it, they laugh. There's a boy named Mark sitting at the 8th grade table. He laughs. Brian gets up, cleans himself off a little bit, goes off to the locker room, puts his gym shorts on because his pants were just full of the tomato soup. Later, Mark tells a friend about it, and the friend doesn't really get what the story is like. He wasn't there, and he actually thinks Mark is kind of cruel for trying to pass that story along. Brian finishes his day. Not many people saw it. He goes home. He takes his gym shorts off, puts on regular clothes, spends the night with his family. That's 2008. Now, let's imagine Brian again, same kid, same family, same school, still in 7th grade. It's 2018, or today. When Brian sits down for breakfast, his dad is answering an email on his phone at the table. His older sister is texting, and his younger sister is playing a video game. Brian has an iPhone, too. He takes it out and opens up the Instagram app. The Brian from 2008 was wondering about his position in the social hierarchy. The Brian from 2018 knows his position in the social hierarchy. He can see it right there on the screen. He has fewer followers than the other kids in his grade, and that's a problem. Brian thinks about it all morning at school. While his teacher talks, he slips his phone out and checks to see how many followers the other kids in the class have. And at noon, he heads to the cafeteria. This is the Brian of 2018. He eats a sandwich which he likes. He doesn't like the bowl of tomato soup. He's walking to put it away. He slips on the water. He falls on his back. The 8th grader boys at the table laugh. Mark is there laughing at him, and Mark calls out his shiny iPhone, which Mark, an 8th grader, has had for 5 years. He's got all the apps on it: Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. He records a video of Brian having fallen, all a mess of tomato soup all over him, trying to clean himself up. Brian's embarrassed. He goes off, does the same thing, changes into his gym shorts, heads back to his homeroom, and it's a little different back in his homeroom when Brian goes back into class. Having changed into his gym shorts, he goes to his homeroom. He's still embarrassed. When he walks into the classroom, a lot of people are looking at him now. One girl holds up her phone at an odd angle. Is she taking a picture? Her phone comes down quickly, and she starts typing, so he can't be sure. Class begins. Brian is so confused because people keep slipping their phones out and glancing back at him. He has to go to the bathroom. Inside a stall, he opens Instagram, and there he's on the screen, covered in tomato soup. How could this be? Who filmed this? Below the video, a new picture has just appeared. It's him in his gym shorts. The caption reads, "Loser." He just wants to go home. Home is a safe place for Brian in 2008, and he hopes it'll be a safe place again. But is it? Not in 2018. He's distracted. He can't concentrate on his homework. He goes to dinner, but he's not really engaged. As a matter of fact, he excuses him one time during dinner to go to the bathroom, but the only reason he's in the bathroom is to check Instagram, to hope that the likes and the follows are not continuing to escalate on the video, but they are. Brian stays up all night, refreshing his feed, hoping the rising view count will start to slow. Mark is doing the same thing at the other side of town, but watching for new followers instead. This is Mark's best video ever. Mark smiles. Across town, Brian isn't smiling at all. He knows his place, and it's not good. End of blog. I want to be clear on this right away. I'm not condemning phones. As a matter of fact, we use them. Some of you, we encourage people to use them even during the message. I want a bunch of you to be on Facebook Live and sharing what the message is giving you with your friends who aren't here. And so we use phones here at Cross Life Church. Phones are neither good nor evil. They're innate. They're benign, like clothes or electricity or money. Phones are not the root of all evil, but how we use them can be. Whether that's money or electricity or clothes, I can dress inappropriately or I can dress appropriately. I can use a phone inappropriately, I can use it appropriately. And experts say we are still learning how to balance all this and how to do it right. So I'm not condemning phones, but I'm warning all of us about these unknown lurking dangers that are out there. And I'm pointing out with interest the power that phones have for this connection. Brian was asking the same questions in 2018 that he was asking in 2008. Who am I? What's important for me to be doing today? And what are my hopes for the future? In 2018, those questions are answered by this powerful connection to the phone. They are determined by his connection to others and to himself, and not determined by family, by faith, by foundational truths, but instead by followers, and maybe a little bit of fake news sprinkled in. We have the same questions. We do, adults, kids, you do too. We all, these are life's questions. Who am I? Who's my family? What is my family going to be? Who is our church? What are we all about? How can we do what we're supposed to do today? And how do we know what our purpose is? See, we can find those answers if we're connected in powerful ways. And Jesus says, really today, in his I am, if Jesus were saying this I am statement today, he would not say, I am the vine. He would say, I am your phone. I am your powerful connection to the answer to all these questions. So let's listen to his words in John chapter 15. And Jesus speaks directly to our desires about identity, about accomplishments, and about purpose in life when he says these words. He begins, John chapter 15, verse 1. Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Jesus telling us, I am your connection. I am your powerful connection to progress, to productivity, and to purpose. And he outlines those three in these words today: progress, productivity, and purpose. I'm going to outline them too. First of all, progress. Spring is in full progress around us. It's early April, and we're enjoying it for the most part. Bare trees are now budding with green, lush leaves on them. The flowers are blooming, and there's a larger and larger yellow dust of pollen count every day. Maybe we're not enjoying that so much. But if you just have to look around you, and spring is progressing. Just like God built progress into the seasons of the year and the transitions to those seasons, God builds progress into your spiritual life. It's meant to be progress. I've studied these words from Jesus for 40 to 50 years, and I made this discovery this week, and it's outstanding. I love it when the Holy Spirit does this. There's progress in Jesus' words. So if I abridge a little bit, you're going to see that here, that Jesus says, and this is verse 2, that we progress from no fruit, and then he says, still in verse 2, from no fruit to fruit. And then still in verse 2, more fruit. And then in verse 8, much fruit. So you see the progress that Jesus builds in even to these words here. Now, that can be very exciting to some of progress, growth, improvement, development, yes. And that can also be very overwhelming and scary. I don't know if I'm up for that. Jesus, if I'm supposed to progress, that's probably going to mean change, and change is scary for me. I don't like being outside of my box, outside of my comfort zone. Jesus, what if I'm a failure? All I've done my whole life is fail, and now you're going to ask me to try something new. I'm going to fail again. See, progress can be kind of scary. Kids, question for you. How many of you kids remember the first time you tied your shoes all by yourself? Probably some of you are pretty close to that moment. Maybe some of you are getting there. Some of you don't wear tied shoes anymore. You just wear boots. There's a little boy who learned to tie his shoes, and I'm guessing none of you reacted this way, but here is his reaction. It was a little bit different. He learned to tie his shoes. This boy tied his shoes by himself for his first time. And Mom and Dad were there, and they were so proud. And he got done tying his shoes, and he looked up, and he had tears flowing down his face, and he was crying, and he couldn't stop sobbing. And Mom and Dad said, well, what's the matter? He said, no, I'm going to have to tie my shoes all by myself the rest of my life. See, change, progress can feel overwhelming. It did to this little boy. Now, I'm guessing the rest of you kids out there, the first time you tied your shoes, didn't do that, and most of us don't do that. Why? Because we know Mom and Dad are right there. We tie our shoes on our own. We're figuring we'll be able to do it on our own the next time, but when we can't, who's going to be there to help? Mom or Dad. See, so progress is overwhelming when I'm only focused on myself. Like the little boy, he was just thinking of himself and all he could do to tie his shoes. So Jesus says when we focus on ourselves that we will bear no fruit. So he calls his father the gardener and goes on in this verse, in verse 2. He says, my father the gardener cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. So you see that progress there. But I want to start at that first one, at no fruit. The metaphor is a little mysterious here, but if we stay with the Jesus metaphor, his parable statement here, this branch is in Jesus, but unproductive, not bearing fruit. How can that be? In Jesus, not bearing fruit, and then gets cut off and thrown away. This is saying that it's possible to be in Jesus, but not bearing fruit. Well, what does that look like? I'd say it looks like this. To be in your high school class 20 years later and go to your 20th high school reunion and see people that you haven't seen since high school, and you recognize them, they got the same personality, and you remember the name, and there were memories, and you connect with them, and you have a good time for that evening. Then you're in the class with them, and you're in the class reunion with them, but you're not really connected to them in an ongoing, functional, day-by-day relationship. You're Facebook friends, you see them around, but that to me is what this means when Jesus says there's a branch in me but not bearing much fruit. It's possible to be in Jesus, but not functionally, daily, deeply, relationally connected to him in a way that does bear fruit. You may have status. You may be in church. You may be in membership in a church organization. Jesus, that's like being in Jesus and not bearing fruit if all it is status instead of progress. Jesus is looking for progress. So he says, verse 6, if you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. See, there's no such thing as an unproductive branch. Jesus in those words said there's no such thing as a branch that's connected and that's unproductive. If it's unproductive, it's not a branch, it's firewood. That's what Jesus says. So how do we make sure none of us want to be no fruit? How do we make sure we've progressed from no fruit at least to fruit, bearing fruit, and better yet, more fruit? Jesus gives the answer. Right here in verse 4, he says this. Listen carefully, I'm going to ask you what the most important word in this sentence of Jesus is. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Kids, did you pick it up? What's the most important word in there? What did Jesus say 4 times? What word? Remain. Remain in me 4 times in that verse. As a matter of fact, that word remain, Jesus emphasized it in this extended metaphor, and John picked it up, the gospel writer John, and he wrote it. It appears 11 times in this one chapter. If we go wider, John has caught on to this concept, and Jesus had taught it a lot. That Greek word remain appears 40 times in the Gospel of John. And if you go to John's 3 little letters or epistles way at the end of the Bible, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John before Jude and Revelation, in those 3 little letters, those epistles, the Greek word remain 27 times. There's something that Jesus and John are emphasizing here about that word remain, and it means something different than just being in. The literal Greek meaning of that word remain is to be firmly attached to. Now, because you and I aren't plants, we're just being compared to them, I'd give it this meaning for people: to hold on for dear life. That's what remain means. And Jesus says, I want you to hold on to me for dear life. All right, that's the thought of remain. Hold on for dear life. How do we picture that? I would say it's like white-knuckling the bar on the roller coaster, when you're going on the roller coaster for the first time, or you're kind of afraid all the time of roller coasters, and you grab onto that lap bar and you white knuckle it, and you just, that's what it means to hold on for dear life. You're like, I gotta grab onto this, because when we go down the hill, if I don't grab onto this, it's gonna launch me out of the roller coaster, I'm gonna go flying into the air, and I'm gonna land and crash. And that's what you're thinking. That's why you're grabbing on so tight. That's hold on for dear life. Now I got a question for you. Look at these words of Jesus again. And I want you to see the command. So where is the command in verse 4? Pretty clear, pretty obvious. It's right off the bat. Jesus says, remain in me. That's a command. I want you to do this. But Jesus never gives a command without giving a promise. Where's the promise? It's right there next to it, isn't it? Remain in me is a command. The promise is, as I also remain in you. Jesus says, I hold on to you for dear life. Jesus is your roller coaster bar. So, kids, how many of you have gone on a roller coaster? Yeah, okay. How many of you, when you're on the roller coaster, do this crazy thing where you raise your hands in the air and you go, the roller coaster goes? How many of you do that? Raise both hands. Raise both hands like you would on a roller coaster. Okay, a few of you. See, when you go on a roller coaster and the bar is holding on to you for dear life, you don't have to hold on to the bar for dear life. You can let go, and by faith and by trusting the engineering of the roller coaster designer, you can enjoy the roller coaster ride the way that, honestly, we're all supposed to enjoy roller coaster rides. Come on, you got to let go. That Jesus says, I don't want you to white knuckle grip your progress and your productivity, and white knuckle grip even coming after me, even like pray with white knuckle grip, like I got to get this, God, you got to give this to me. Jesus says, I want you to hold on for dear life by faith. I want you to raise your hands in the air. I want you to let go of what you think you have to grab onto, whatever you need to be secure and accomplished and productive and happy in this world, and I want you to know that I got you. I am your roller. I am holding on to you for dear life. What does that mean practically and spiritually? Jesus says it means that I forgive you fully, more than you forgive yourself. And when I forgive you fully, I never go back. I never bring it up again. I don't forget that I've forgiven you. I forget what you've done, Jesus says. I've forgotten all about it. Why do you keep remembering it? Stop holding on. Jesus says, in my mercy, what means that I'm holding on to you for dear life and never letting go is that in my mercy I love you, and there's nothing you can ever do to make me love you any less. Nothing. I'm never embarrassed about you. I never want to turn away from you because you've done something so terrible. Jesus says, Jesus calls you his friend. And holding on to you for dear life means that he will never unfollow you. Never. There's nothing that you can do to make him unfollow you. He will always be there for you, always love you, always forgive you. That's holding on to you for dear life so that you can let go and enjoy life and grow and live. And all that then comes with a meaningful purpose. Jesus says this in verse 8. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit. So you're growing. You're not no fruit anymore. You're at least a little fruit. And maybe you feel like, I think there's even more fruit. I'm growing in my Christian life. There's more fruit. I'm in the Word more. I'm experiencing God and His truth and His works and His deeds through prayer. He's enlightening me. I'm seeing more. I'm growing. I'm maturing. We should all be on that path. And Jesus says this, that's awesome. God the Father has an even better version of you that He knows and He believes in and He sees out there. And He wants it more than you do, and He believes in it more than you do, and He's going to make it happen, maybe even in ways that more than you can happen, but He's always got a better version of you. And it's all about His glory, Jesus says, and so that means when you focus less on yourself and more on God's glory, you're going to have more productivity and improvement. When you focus less on yourself and more on God's glory, you're going to have a clearer acceptance of when God the Father is pruning you. Oh, and that hurts. When He takes something away. When you run into a dead end, when there's some pain in your life that God the Father is actually allowing or even causing, if your focus is less on you and more on His glory, you're going to tune into that more. And it's going to hurt less, and you're going to be less afraid. This is the improving you, the better version of you that the Father is working on you to bring more blossoms, more blooms, more bananas. When you're focusing more on God and less on yourself, you're going to hold tight to a clearer purpose for your life and for the day. Let me tell you that, for the day. When it's less about you and more about God, you're going to wake up in the morning and say, good morning, God. It's a great day. This is the day, God, that you have made, and I rejoice and I'm glad in it. And God, there's going to be things that happen today that I don't choose, that are coming around the dark corner. I have no idea they're going to happen, but God, it's nothing you and I can't handle together. And God, by your Son, Jesus Christ, I know you have my sins covered. I know you're not angry with me, and I know you're not punishing me. And that everything that'll happen today is for my good. And God, just make whatever happens today for your glory. It's all about you. That when you're focused less on yourself and more on God, is how you feel every morning. There's that clarity of purpose that brings that confidence to it, living for God's glory. A bunch of us went to the Loving Outrageously banquet of the Pflugerville Pregnancy Resource Center this past Thursday night. A bunch of us cross-lifers were there. Fantastic organization supporting life for unborn babies, for mothers, and even for young children, for families. It was an amazing evening. We met, one of the featured speakers was Chewbacca Mom. Remember the lady that went viral with the video of wearing the Chewbacca mask, and then she was just like laughing for 30 seconds and maybe talking for 2 seconds? Okay, she lives in Dallas, and she was there. She was one of the speakers. Fantastic speaker. And another one of the speakers was Claire Caldwell. Claire Caldwell is an abortion survivor. Let me say that again. An abortion survivor. Not the mom, like she was in the womb as an abortion survivor. She lives right here in Pflugerville, actually. And she told her amazing story. She was adopted, and then later in life, she met her birth mom, and this is where she discovered that she didn't know this before, but this is where she discovered from her birth mom that she was an abortion survivor, because her birth mom got pregnant at 13 years old and was convinced by her family and by counselors, by people at school, that the only option was an abortion. So Claire's mother, who was 13, went in and had an abortion. And later, a short time later, discovered that she was still pregnant. She was so traumatized by having the abortion that when they consulted her to have another one to make sure the job was done right, she refused, and she chose life. At that time, they did more tests, and they discovered that Claire was still in her birth mom's womb. She was a twin. Her twin had been aborted, but she had not. Her mom gave her birth at 13 weeks premature. She was 3 pounds when she was born. Here she is today. She said that she tends to be an introvert and doesn't like standing in front of people and talking and doesn't like having a website with her pictures splashed all over it. But guess what? She has a website with her pictures splashed all over it. And she goes and she speaks and she talks, and she gave an amazing speech to us, an address as well. And the point of her speech was this: it took me a while to come to this reality and recognition, but now I do. It took me a while to recognize and realize that my life was a gift, that I could have been aborted with my twin, and I wasn't. And God allowed me to live, and He gave me life as a gift for a purpose. And the purpose of my life is to give that life back to others, is to give life to others and be life for them. And so she's saying, introvert or not, God has a purpose for me, and it's very clear. Not just to live life, but to give life. When you're focused on God and His glory, and more on Him and less on yourself, you're going to have that clarity of purpose like Claire Caldwell has. It is inspiring. You and I have that. We do, in the very words of Jesus, who calls us clearly and commands us clearly to remain in Him, to hold on for dear life, but do it by faith and let go, and says that He has us and He's holding on for dear life. And He does. He's the vine and we're the branches. You are connected to Him in powerful ways. To not bear no fruit, but to bear fruit, more fruit, and much fruit. Amen. Let's pray. Jesus, your words are so comforting and compelling at the same time. You know what's on our hearts. You know that we wake up on some days and really wonder who you want us to be, who we are, what you want us to be doing for the day, and what our future hope really is. You have the love, the wisdom, the patience, and the compassion to answer those questions for us with the best news ever. Thank you for being the vine, for being that powerful connection for us to life, to accomplishment, to productivity, to purpose. Jesus, continue to speak your words to us in the Scriptures, in the Bible. And help us to listen to those words and believe them and appropriate them and take them into our hearts and lives permanently. And as we do, we remain in you with the faith and confidence, Jesus, that you always remain in us and that you hold on to us for dear life. Thank you, Jesus, for these words that comfort us and compel us today. Amen.
Now that's a life-changing promise from Jesus, that you can make progress, become more productive, and have clear purpose in life, all because Jesus is the vine, and you're connected to Him like a branch. Catch the rest of the I Am Message series at Cross Life by liking us on Facebook at Cross Life PF Church, or by hitting the subscribe button on our YouTube channel at Cross Life Church, Pflugerville. From all of us here at Cross Life, thank you for joining us, and see you next week.